So for anybody who knows me, you know that I'm not a real big fan of Under Armour or skid plates or whatever you want to call them. They're big, they're bulky, they trap heat, they make it difficult to service the underside of your Jeep or to even spot something like a leak. So for the most part, I personally prefer just the factory gas tank skid plate, transfer case skid plate, and aside from that, I'm good. It's what we've been running for over 10 years, 11, well I guess it's like 12 years now on Moby. Sure, they don't look pretty, but they work. They work great. But the one thing that Jeep didn't do is provide anything to protect the oil pan, or more importantly, these transmission cooler lines. It's these guys that I'm really concerned with because of what I've seen on the trail, and that's that roots or branches can actually catch up underneath these and tear them out. So today, we're going to install a set of EVO ProTek skid plates because they do a great job of protecting just the things that I'm concerned with, and that's these areas right here. Get my trusty knife. Oh, look at that. Brochure. Looks like some hardware of some sort. Make sure I don't lose that. This looks like maybe for the exhaust. And nothing else. Some bigger stuff here. Looks like some kind of an arm. Another one that's actually wrapped. Hardware. This must be the opposite side. Okay, this looks like the main engine skid. Pretty big and beefy, as you can see. Looks like a oil drain port as well. So I'm still not 100% sure what anything is or how it's going to get installed. We're just going to kind of guess at this because we have no instructions. I'm going to unload some of these hardware from their packaging. Not sure where that goes yet. Not 100% sure what all these parts are, but it looks like these two holes right here are going to be used right here on these 2 points. So what I think I'll do first is go ahead and remove all the factory skid, well, the transfer case skid plate and the transmission skid bar, and then I'll at least hang that main length of skid plate to see what it does, and then I might be able to figure out where all the other points need to go. This winter thing. Okay. Using a 13mm socket, I'm going to go ahead and remove these 2 nuts that are securing the transfer case skid plate to the gas tank skid plate. You can see them right here. Of course, we're going to be reusing this skid plate, so just make sure you set all your hardware in a place where you won't lose it. Okay, using an 18mm socket, we're going to go ahead and remove the rest of these 4 bolts. I'm going to assume I might need to reuse those 2 bolts right here, but let's go ahead and get the skid bar off too. Again, we're going to use an 18mm socket to take off the 3 bolts holding on the transmission skid bar. All the bolts are a little bit jacked up. Wonder why. Okay, let's see what we can do with these EVO parts now. Okay, it looks like we've got 2, 4, 6 bolts, nuts and washers. Looks like 2, 4, 6. So we're definitely going to be reusing the factory bolts on the cross member. So let's go ahead and see if we can't figure that out. Just loosely tighten them on for now, just so I can see what's going on. So you can see now that I've kind of hung up this skid plate, these holes here on the side look like there might be an arm that goes up to the motor mounts up here. Probably going to be attaching to this is what I'm going to guess. And then over here, same thing. Looks like it's going to come up and maybe attach up here somewhere. So I'm going to go and see which arms are going to fit where. So it looks like this bracket may go on the passenger side kind of like that up to the motor mount. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah.
And then maybe this long bracket right here on the driver's side, right about there, like that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the hardware package, see if I can't get these installed. 5/8 maybe? Ooh, look at that. Good guess. So we determined that we're going to need a 5/8 inch socket or wrench for these big guys here. And these nuts are essentially 11/16, but I don't actually have an 11/16 on me. I must have misplaced it. But fortunately, an 18 millimeter wrench, same thing. So that's what we're going to use. I'm just going to take a stab in the dark on how all this works. You know, my hands are going to be cold, but I have no dexterity with these things on. I'm going to grab one of the bolts, a washer, and these are stovers, so otherwise I would probably have used some red Loctite, but these make it unnecessary because they're pinch nuts. Everything loosely on for now. Jackpot. Machine pays out. All right, with all the bolts essentially hung or inserted, we can go ahead and tighten everything up now. So using a 5/8 inch socket for all the bolt heads and an 11/16 or 18 millimeter wrench, I'm going to go ahead and secure everything in place. Okay, I'm just going to go through and tighten them out a little bit more, and then we'll go ahead and install the other skid plate. This one I'm going to have to do by hand because of the drive shaft. Okay. I think we're good there. These bolts we'll leave loose for now because we're going to install the next section here to protect the exhaust and the exhaust loop. So let's get that installed. Alright, so I've been looking at this exhaust loop skid plate, and you can see that normally it would go somewhere right about here. It would attach onto the lower control arm mount bolt right here, share a common hole on the engine skid here, and then it would also use a bolt hole right here in the cross member. Our problem is that we have these LOD rocker guards, and you can see here where it ties in with this really thick flange. We would have to use this common bolt, and unfortunately this hole needs to go here as well. So I don't think we can install this just yet. We do have plans to install a different set of rocker guards to test them out, and when we do that we'll have to revisit this section. But for now we're actually protecting everything that I really wanted to protect, and that was the transmission cooler lines and the oil pan. So for now I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the transfer case skid plate and call it a day. Alright, I think for now we are done. Protected. So fast forward to about a week later, and as you can see we got a new set of rocker guards installed, which frees up the hole that was kind of getting in our way. So today we're going to finish up the install of this EVO ProTek skid system. So let's get started. also going to need a crescent wrench because I don't have a 24mm box wrench. So for one, we're going to have to free up this bolt again because the rest of the skid plate, the exhaust loop skid plate, shares this bolt in common. We're going to tie into this plate right here, and we're going to need to get rid of that nut right there. This would otherwise require a 24mm box wrench because of the exhaust loop. I'm pretty sure this is 21 up here on this side. Yep. It's quite a distance to make. Everything else seems to line up. I'm sure I can force it. Looks like we're gonna have to free up another bolt or two just to give us some more wiggle room. Let's see if that does the trick. No. Man, it's still pretty off. Yeah, that's closer. Problem is that it needs to line up with that hole there too still, you know? Almost. Alright. That worked. Tolerances were a little too tight, but a little ingenuity, I was able to make it work. So using a 9/16 inch wrench, we can go ahead and tighten up the bolt, probably ahead of any of the others, just because it's such a bear to get on. All right. Whew. That took a lot of work. Go ahead and put our 21mm socket back in, holding a crescent wrench from the back side here. Gonna try to tighten it up. I'm gonna have to come back with the torque wrench. But that's secure, these guys are secure, this is secure. We just have this one hole here that seems to be just floating around, which is weird. Right here, I didn't get any hardware for that. I'm not sure how to secure that in place. So it would have been nice to have some kind of a flag nut that passed through the top or through the side. But I have this serrated nut and a bolt that I found in my hardware bin. I might be able to coax it in. I'm just afraid I might lose it, you know. Then it'd rattle around in our frame. Fortunately, over the last 25 years or so, I've been saving every nut and bolt that I've ever gotten for whatever, or taken off of a Jeep. So I have a lot to work with here, and I might be able to figure something out. So first of all, I think we're gonna need to get ourselves a flagged nut, and then find a bolt. Oh, nope. Looks like a fine thread and a coarse thread, so grab this guy. Aha. Grab ourselves a washer. Let's go with one of these guys. At least it's kind of black. Okay, so I'm gonna have to probably bend this guy. So if I stick this in and turn it, there. Let's put it in the vise. So even though I was able to get the flag nut to work, to get this exhaust loop skid plate secured to the frame rail, I actually went back to what I had done originally, and that was work with the serrated nut and bolt just to get this thing secured in place. So I actually called up EVO to see if maybe they had some hardware for this and that I just didn't get, and it turns out that they did. And ultimately they sent me a flag nut with a bolt, and here, let me show you. As you can see here, it looks very similar to what I had done. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and remove the bolt and nut that I had installed and replace it with this. Whew, got it out. All right, so now we can do it the right way. Take this flag nut, insert it up into this hole, and then thread on the supplied bolt. I think this is going to require a 5/8 inch socket. All right, we now have our EVO ProTek skid plates officially installed on our JL, and everything that was of concern to me, especially these cooler lines and oil pan, are now officially protected. Guys ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to rock.